welcome to our Town Council Workshop meeting, along with a special meeting. We're here tonight to present the findings of the Planning and Zoning Committee. It is a preliminary committee, and it's made up of volunteers. So we welcome them. We welcome you. We want, now during the workshop, it is mainly for them. This is our first presentation to the council. So this is mainly for them to kind of present what they've been working so diligently on all these months, and for us to ask questions. And so that's a time of just presenting that and for clarification on things. We then we'll have an executive session, and then we will have a special agenda. So at the special agenda, then you can sign up to speak if you, for those items. So we want you to feel welcome. We want you to feel heard. We do ask that you show respect for all involved, despite opposing views. We thank you. Okay, so Secretary Teresa Scholender is going to do roll call.
First, Councilmember Terry Fowler.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Jaffe.
Here.
Councilmember Tom Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Brian Vinson.
Here.
Councilmember Simeon White.
Here.
And Mayor Tara Sinkovich.
Here. Okay, and Mike Griffin has agreed to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance and then our invocation after.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your head. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of life, for the gift of this day. We thank you for allowing us to live in this country, in this state, and in this community. We humbly ask that you open our ears and our minds and our hearts to be receptive to your Spirit. Please bless and direct our efforts at being good stewards of the many wonderful gifts that you have bestowed on us, and help us to remember to be thankful to you for all of those gifts, including the gift of each other. We ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus, and we pray that in all things your will be done. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so we are convening into our workshop. It's a workshop meeting in the Town Council. No Town Council action will be taken at the workshop meeting. Discussion will be limited to members of the Town Council. At such time an item is placed on the Town Council agenda, an opportunity for the public will be provided. So Catherine Hartwick is our chairwoman, and we'll let you take it away. I guess so. Yeah, we only have a limited number.
Is this good? Well, we're happy to see some audience out here. That's great. And we are ready to answer your questions. We've put in a lot of thought.
Can you please start by introducing everyone?
Yes.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you guys to stand up. Mike Griffin, Chad West, Leland Barnett, Robin Followell, Dale Bryant, Kevin Sinkovich, and myself, Catherine Hardwick. We have worked a bit on this. Oh, sorry. I forgot you guys. No, I didn't really forget you. Simeon White and Terry Fowler. These are our council members and hardworking contributors to this whole process. I hope that we will be able to answer any questions that you have. And I'm hoping that we can pass the mic up and down and different people can have opportunities to talk, because we've all had input into this process. I'd like to stress, this is future land use map. This is not today. Comprehensive plan is for planning for the future. It's to lay down guidelines for future council in how we want this community to grow. And that's why I feel strongly that this comprehensive plan is addressing a lot of the concerns that I hear out in the public. So I hope that we can all look at this with an open mind, and we welcome any areas that you think need fine-tuning. And if by any chance we are completely off track, please let us know quickly, because we've put a lot of time into this. So questions, please. I really did like the mission statement. Would you mind having yourself or someone else read the mission statement for those who don't maybe have a packet? And I think it was well thought out. All right. And great minds put this together, and I'm happy to get to read what these great minds around me put together. I went to Gulf Shores. The Poetry Comprehensive Plan mission statement: protect our rural and agricultural lifestyle from the encroachment of persons, developers, and special districts who do not hold the rural spirit as a priority through the following means: keeping development consistent with rural lifestyle, regulating and/or preventing heavy industry, traffic, and high-density developments while securing the rights of light manufacturing, home business, and property owners. Hold dear the liberties of our citizens while being considerate of our neighbors by having as few rules as possible, and for those rules to be in keeping with rural life. Fourth is to obtain revenue from utilities, businesses, and other entities in our area to keep taxes, especially property taxes, as low as possible or non-existent.
Thank you. So is there, I think this actually is very key. So is there another person who could maybe read the purpose of the comprehensive land use? I think it's good for us to digest what you've gone through. Okay.
Chad, you've been
Not everyone
volunteering.
at once.
Before I read that, I just wanted to make a general comment that we're here tonight to talk about the comprehensive plan, which in the vast majority of municipalities in the state of Texas, they have a comprehensive plan upon which they hang their zoning ordinance and other ordinances. So this, if you will, is a framework for us to guide what may end up being a zoning ordinance if we decide to go that direction. But what we're talking about tonight is the comprehensive plan, which is a broad brush look at the future, what we would like to see happen in the future. And the purpose of the comprehensive plan, it's also known as a general plan, master plan, or land use plan. It's a document designed to guide the future actions of a community. It presents a vision for the future with long-range goals and purposes for all activities that affect local government. This includes guidance on how to make decisions on public and private land development proposals, the expenditure of public funds, availability of tax policy, that is tax incentives, cooperative efforts and issues of pressing concern, such as farmland preservation or the rehabilitation of older neighborhood areas. Most plans are written to provide direction for future activities over a 10 to 20-year period after plan adoption. However, plans should receive a considered review and possible update every 5 years. This plan serves as a guideline to official decisions regarding the distribution and intensity of private development, as well as public decisions on the location of future public facilities and open spaces.
Thank you. So on the chart, it says the current makeup, a lot of of us hear about, we want to keep poetry, we want to keep it like it is. Some may or may not agree with that, but I hear that quite a bit. So, but the current land use distribution, they have a chart here, and I think it's really good to have a knowledge base of where we are. So if we don't know where we are, how do we know where we're going? So the land use types 0 to 1.99 acre lots is 2.2%, 2 to 4.99, they have 8.6%, 5+ acre lots is 89.2%. So most of our makeup is larger lots. So I think that's key. If we want to have the same, keep poetry, it's important for us to understand where we are. And that's where we are. So
Tara, on that acreage, I'm curious, is that lots that come into the town by as much as an inch or something? Or it's not just lots that border the town, right? That's actual acreage that's
I don't
hanging
know
over
where you
into
got
the
the
town
data.
limits?
I don't think I did that.
That's correct. It's lots that
you
are
did it.
somewhat in the town. So we're taking the mother tracts of the lots, which are seen in the future land use map as well. It only considers lots that at least have a portion of them within the town.
Okay, so if it's multiple tracks and they're all connected, then you just call that a single?
We've not dug that deep into it, so no, it would just be individual
Okay.
property IDs, is I believe how we've done it. Is that right?
Can we get you a microphone, Dale?
Let's say you have a lot that has an acre that's in the city. Right.
But you happen to own, say, 4 or 5 tax parcels that may add up to 100 acres. Okay, so we viewed that, and which is not perfect, but what we would view that is the mother tract as 100 acres.
Okay.
And from there, we classified it as, in that scenario, agrarian, the bigger tract. So again, we took the mother tract, regardless of the amount of land that is in the city, we treated the mother tract.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the case of Kaufman. Kaufman came back and replatted everything.
Yeah, they did.
So people that used to own one chunk of land in Kaufman County that's in poetry now own 2 chunks of land if it's big enough and over, right, so.
And on
Right,
that-
and that kind of threw us off, slowed us down a little bit. But the basic idea is if you have a big piece of land, but maybe you bought it piecemeal, but it's all contiguous, then we want to give you the agrarian title because that's the biggest area that we have. That's the backbone of keeping poetry rural.
So was the idea, Catherine, to grandfather everything? This is sort of an as-built, right? This is as we are today. I mean, we haven't changed anything. In other words, if there's a little yellow square there, it means there's a business there today.
Yes, as much as we could identify now. This is a
Okay.
broad brush stroke. This is future land use. So we're identifying where some of the businesses, the schools, the churches are, but what we're looking towards the future going, we got some big green areas in here that we'd like to preserve if there's a way to encourage them to keep it large.
But it's very important to realize this isn't precise. So there's plenty of lots in there that are 1 acre that are marked as 5, and some in there in the 1 or 2 acre areas that are marked as 1 or 5 or different things, because we just kind of had to group it. That's what a comprehensive plan is supposed to be, is just kind of a grouping of everything to give, again, a broad brush, general stroke view of it. And if you have an individual house somewhere in there that you know, for example, is only 2 acres but is marked as 5 right now, that'll be drilled down later in zoning, and the zoning map will be precise. It'll be considered land, property by property, on a one-to-one basis. This is kind of just groupings of properties, so it's not precise.
And can you clarify, it looks like you put under businesses, you have churches, not the school, under businesses. Can you clarify maybe why you didn't?
Non-residential.
So business is just non-residential? Okay.
And I'm guessing the green, if somebody lives on the green but is ag exempt, that's why it doesn't show it pink, because even though it has a home on it, it's,
We don't really look at the ag exemption, that's from a taxing standpoint,
okay?
okay? So that's really not in our,
The ag exempt, Mike, is determined by the Central Appraisal District and is completely independent of any zoning.
Okay, I guess I'm just.
Can you say that again, please?
The ag exemptions are determined by the Central Appraisal District and are completely independent of any zones that we may or may not create.
Okay, that's fine. I
so-
mean, I didn't mean to say we had jurisdiction. I was just, so I'm looking at one of my ranches up here on 2326, just in front of the spring, so it's all green, but I do live there.
Well,
So I'm just saying it's not so single-family home, I was just wondering why some are single-family home and they're the purpley color and others, single-family homes are green. If you were just using that as an indicator maybe of, okay, we know that's a farm or we know that's purely a home.
what we actually intended, Mike, was in tracts that are 5 acres and larger, we considered that agrarian residential
okay.
because it may have homes and barns and buildings and
Okay.
and families living on it, but we consider that agrarian residential, whereas the pink are the lots that are from 2 to 5 acres, and the purple is
Okay.
less than 2.
Okay, that
So
answers
a lot
it.
of green, a lot of agrarian, looks like. And that's what makes poetry beautiful, right? I think it might be helpful, Councilmember Simeon, would you mind reading the guidelines so that we can kind of digest what you've written? You've spent a lot of time doing this.
Sure, absolutely. Keeping in mind that this really doesn't have, isn't directly related to zoning. The comprehensive plan is kind of like a mission statement for the whole town. So I just want to make that clear. And the guidelines of this are: the Town of Poetry Comprehensive Plan combines the goals and purposes of its residents with sound planning principles in conjunction with the attached future land use map. That's what we see up here. By the way of the following general guidelines. 1, to provide a low-density rural atmosphere allowing single-family residential and agricultural uses. Additionally, in select areas, small-scale office facilities, neighborhood shopping facilities, and retail facilities of a service character that serve the need of the poetry community. So that would be what we see in businesses generally. 2 is to prevent overcrowding of the land, which is why we have everything broken up in different sections. It would be very hard for a developer to get our agreement to construct anything in the middle of a green, for example, which is why this is all broken up and we want most of it green, because we just have good reason and good legal reason to push developers back if they try to build quarter-acre or even 1-acre lots in the middle of a green area.
And
As
and
part
on
of the
that
use of
note-
this is for,
Oh,
go ahead.
but If on that note, why I'm thinking of it, I'm sorry for interjecting, but I've heard from several city planners and city mayors and city managers that without the comprehensive plan, you do not have a leg to stand on. So it's very key, if you want to protect your area and keep out, undesirable development, it's very key that you have a plan. So thank you. Anyway, go ahead.
Right. So part of the reason of this is to prevent overcrowding, to prevent congestion in the streets, to secure safety from fire, panic, and other dangers, and to avoid undue concentration of the population. Again, all in connection with development, which this main goal, I would say, is preventing that. To avoid, where possible, destructions of trees and landscape, to protect environmentally sensitive areas such as floodplains and floodways, and to promote and preserve open space, to maintain the existing quality of life through enforcement of land use and building codes. And those are our guidelines.
Thank you.
We've got I think it's more of a philosophical question, because we're getting into some details, but as the mayor mentioned earlier, you know, part of the whole reason that we incorporated in this process is to keep poetry poetry. But a lot of people have a different idea of what that means. Some people want to take a picture and keep it looking like that picture. Some people want to hear a story and be reminded of that story. Some people, like myself, came out here because there weren't a lot of rules, and we don't want a lot of rules. So on a philosophical level, I mean, we can read words, and it has to be documented, I understand. But from that level, where are you coming from? Because, you know, the mission statement in point 3 says, hold the liberties of our citizens, hold dear the liberties of our citizens while being considerate of our neighbors. Those points are in conflict at some point. So what is the philosophy that would guide which side of the line you fall on?
I'll speak first. And actually, I think Chad had quoted me one other time, but the same campaign that we keep discussing up here, I said it in one of our meetings because somebody said, what's our vision? And I'm probably totally opposite than everybody over here and up here. I don't have a vision. I have a memory of what poetry is. So that's what I'm fighting to keep. That being said, I don't think anybody up here doesn't have a belief in keeping it the same. The idea is what minimal rules can we put in place to protect that memory? So as bad as I hate rules, just like you spoke of, at some point we have to say what is or what isn't allowed. This is just the best effort by, I guess, a group of citizens that should be I guess it should be a fair representation of the citizenry in whole, but we want to hear from everybody. But this is just the best, I guess, plan, and golly, these guys have worked and girls have worked so hard on this. I missed a lot of meetings due to work schedules, but there's just so much work in this. But I think the overall philosophy is, let's keep it like it is and as little rules as possible to maintain our sacred town. One of the biggest things we're fighting against is our actual town limits, that 311-foot line. So we've had lots of conversations about this and what can we do to protect it. You know, if they're coming through that 311 feet, can we make it, for lack of a better term, so difficult that they don't even want to get to the 311 feet to put those 0 lot line houses in? So I think if I'm speaking for me, and I think most, just hearing their heart, the philosophical view is to keep it like it is. But you're right. I mean, you've got the complete package. You see all the definitions, and I mean, you have to write a definition on things you don't want, so it's clearly defined. If somebody brings it up, go, no, we clearly define that. We don't want it. You can't just leave it out there. So it's not as simple as picking a few rules and say, okay, this is what we allow. If you don't do the due diligence to say this is what we disallow, well, then you've automatically allowed it in the court's eye. So that's why the document, and it's going to grow, looks like it does. But if anybody else got a different philosophical view than I spoke for, then by all
I
means.
think that was my takeaway with, if it's not written down, then they are allowed in our town. So that's why it's so lengthy. There's so many of them that you have to write down and specify, and then, you know, if you don't have an X or an S on this chart, then it's not allowed. Is that right?
Has that
Okay.
chart gone out to the general populace?
It is in the packet.
Okay.
It is in the packet tonight, but.
We're presenting this to council. We're trying to follow the order that we have observed other towns using, that the state guidelines, which are very minimal. But basically, we're presenting this to the town council. If the town council approves of it, then they have the option to make it public. That's not our place.
Agreed.
So in order to formalize it, of course, a commission or a board of adjustments would have to be formed, and then we can formalize it, but that's subject to all kinds of public hearings and all that. So
We're not
this-
there yet.
We're not quite there. It's going to take a while, so we're not quite there. This is our first public exposure to this. We're just learning. Okay, so is...
Let me
Okay,
follow
go
up real
ahead.
quick. You
Okay.
said the semifinal version is part of the packet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to alleviate some of the confusion, could we go over the X's, S's, and blanks again, just for the people who haven't been exposed to it?
Sure. So on this semi-final version, it has, so on mine, it's green and it has some green spots. And the green spots were where you voted as a committee, is that right? Is that my understanding?
I think we need to make sure we understand what we're dealing with. What you've been given is a comprehensive land plan. This is the broad stroke, this is our vision for the city of Portrait. You've also been given the matrix, which is actually part of zoning, not part of comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Okay, then you have the definitions. And just like what Mike was saying, Terry was saying, the reason why you have that, and we don't have a zoning map yet, because we have to
You have to
agree
have the
to
comprehensive
a
plan.
comprehensive land plan first, okay? But in the process of the committee, we went ahead and laid out all the different uses, not all of them, but what we feel like we may get hit with in poetry over time, and the matrix. So now what you would do, once you approve this or modify it, tell us what you want, then we would take this map and go back and do a zoning map based on any changes you made on the comprehensive plan, and then tweak those two documents, and those would be attached to the zoning map. So then comprehensive plan, zoning map, zoning regulations, zoning matrix, and then we jump into the ordinance, the development ordinances, sign ordinances, road ordinances, board of adjustments, all of those other things. So we're just this is just step one of the whole process. But, in 2 years' time, we'll have all of those documents and all of those ordinances, subdivision ordinances, and be able to clean up the zoning. Everybody's looking at this map, well, that's not me, this is comprehensive plan with broad stroke. When we get to the zoning, everyone that owns property is going to be able to look at that map. And this map will kind of end up being a little more checkerboard, if you will.
So question on a single family, what was your definition of single family?
Before we hop there, can we go ahead and get the SX and blank? Since those have already gone out, again, I just want to eliminate confusion for those who are looking
But
at
that's,
that.
okay, so they're just saying the map is the main thing, and this is kind of secondary, is that right?
I understand that, but it also is now in the hands of the public, so can we, is there a reason that we can't tell them what an
I
S
can
and X and a blank?
explain that real quick. It won't take long.
It's not in the hands of the public.
It was part of the packet for this meeting.
It's required to be part of the packet,
Okay.
yeah.
No, it's not required.
Well, if I could explain kind of how it works. Let's say you take the area that is purple on the map. What we've tried to do is we went through, we've driven it, looked at aerials, looked at maps, and we all took a piece of it. What we tried to do is figure out where those concentrations are, okay? So when you look at, say, the purple, which are the smaller lots in the city, okay? So we have this concentration of smaller lots in about 3 areas, and then the greater than 2, but less than 5 are kind of the pink, and then anything over 5 and up is.
So concise, okay, so this is part of, my question is part of the top of this. In order to understand this, you have to know what these stand for.
And that's what I'm trying to get to, is
So,
an
so
understanding.
single
think-
family is how much land?
Well, I think to answer your question, so what the city would do would take this map. If someone comes in, and let's say they had a tract
All
of
different
land
types in there. It's
next to, on the skirts of one of the purple areas, and they wanted to come in and develop small lots, okay? then the city council would probably say, if you're going to do small lots, we want to concentrate small lots, kind of keep them in the area. We don't need this hopscotch, put a 2-acre lot subdivision next to an estate subdivision, and vice versa. So if somebody came in with land in around the purple and wanted to do 2 acres, then you'd maybe look at that. But if they wanted to come in the middle of the green and do 2-acre lots, then that's where the city council may have to say, that's really not where we want 2-acre lots. And that's the idea behind the comprehensive land plan. Then you look at zoning. Obviously, nothing is zoned, okay, as we speak now. So someone would come in and say, let's say they take a green and they want to do 5-acre estate lots, okay? But the city council probably say, that's okay, but that property's not zoned for that now. That's our future, that's our, I guess, our vision. So if you came in and wanted to do 5-acre lots, the city council would more than likely go along with that in the green, okay? But then you would still have to do, okay, then the city council would come back and say, okay, submit a site plan, a preliminary plat. You've got to go through all of those steps before they ever get that subdivision.
So to answer more precisely the question about the X's and the S's, because that's a great general overview of what we're trying to do here, but for the X's and the S's and then the blanks also should be noted. Each of those relate to what is allowed under a special provision, or what is not allowed in these various zones. The AR is for agrarian. Those are all lots that are above 5 acres. They're green on this map, or at least green what we think they're going to be. The SF-E is single-family estates, which is from 2 to 4.99 acres, so just below 5 acres. And by the way, it's at the back of your document here. The single families, which is the purple that we see there, are for the much smaller lots, which thankfully we don't have much of. They're 1 to 2 acres. And then businesses are kind of their own separate entity, because you don't want to allow like retail stores everywhere, even though we have some stores that might be considered retail now. And that is the yellow that you see there.
The single family, wouldn't that be like, I think we have some that are quarter lots. Wouldn't that be like 0 to 2? Or
That,
you said 1 to 2. Is that, I'm just asking for clarification. Wouldn't that be like 0 to 2?
That
Or like
would.
quarter lot? I think we have some that are like 1/4 of an acre. Not very many, but a few.
yeah,
Okay.
that is a good point. And those should be some of the edits in there that need to be just some details. It's pretty much from 0 to 2, and we want to keep that just where they are. That shouldn't be expanded much.
So I guess
As far
I have a
as-
little bit of, I'm sorry, I thought you were finished.
Yeah, well, just, I didn't get around to answering the X's and the S's. So the X's are allowed, no questions asked in that area, no matter what happens. So, for example, accessory building everywhere, it's allowed anywhere. That's like a barn or something. These are things that have to be addressed, but of course you can have an accessory building. If it's blank all the way across, if it's blank in a zone, that means it's not allowed. If you look over to the right, for example, landfills, not allowed anywhere. It's very possible we could have landfills in Poetry with the sand pits once they're emptied. So this is one of those things that have to be addressed. Nobody wants to live next to a landfill. The S is special. It's got to come before the council for approval. And the reason to do that is sometimes those are okay, sometimes they're not, depending on the circumstances. The council will look at our future land use map. They'll look at our mission statement, that we're looking at tonight, and they'll make a judgment call depending on what that person's looking at. Like maybe with a library, for example, which I don't imagine we'll have many out here, but they might consider it in certain areas of the town, maybe down the main road, but maybe they don't want one, in the middle of nowhere on a giant piece of agrarian land. Or maybe they only want ones of a certain size. That's kind of up to the council to make a judgment call on, is everything in S. X is allowed, and if it's blank, it's not allowed.
Okay, so,
So you have B for business. I guess that a little bit troubles me because I don't think of a church as a business, even though they do have to bring in money and at some point. But I don't know, I guess business, nonprofit.
can we do a nonprofit carve-out?
Can we, that one bothers me just a little bit.
It's non-residential. We were trying to keep the
Business.
map as simple as possible and not have too many colors on there.
Right.
That could be something like when we do the zoning map, that's put
Yeah.
on the zoning map. But it
Okay.
just, the comprehensive, it's like they said, it's just a lot rush of it. It's just to break down what part is the single families. Sorry. I mean, this is just your broad stroke of it, so that you can just look and just right off the bat identify what's single family,
Right.
what's more than the 5 acres, what's business. When we do the zoning map, that's when we can do a certain color for nonprofits, and then you have your business. That's when you get more to the detailed,
detail.
and you break the colors down, and it's more checkered. This is just a overall view as to when you look at the town, you can see, okay, green's more than 5 acres, this one's this range, this one's this range, and yellow's business. So it just kind of lays it all out, just simple to look at it, what we're dealing with, opposed to when you look at the zoning map, and that gets it down to the nitty-gritty for you to be able to see exactly what is what, and what zone this, what's nonprofit, what's business. All that is like all detailed in zoning, not the future land use of the comprehensive plan map.
Okay, so this map represents any property that has any portion of that property in the town.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, as a town, I mean, I understand this is the future use, it's kind of our hope for the future. But as a town, right now, we don't have the right to regulate anything outside the blue area, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So-
And that's kind of an issue for us as a town because,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's some other things that we need to get going too, but this is the first thing that we've got to get taken care of because just like we've all talked before, if a big developer comes in here in 2 weeks, we're not ready, and guess what? We're not going to like it, and they're going to get to do what they want to do. So that's why it's important for us to get this out there. If you like it, y'all like it, we can vote on it. If you want it modified, we needed to get it done as soon as possible because once they come in, we are going to have no way of holding them back.
Keeping in mind that this is also going to determine what we do with our subdivision ordinance, also called the plating ordinance,
Correct.
which will affect the entire ETJ. A town can regulate the subdivision ordinance or the plating within its ETJ, which will affect developers because we can put rules like the 2 acre. Well, we can't put the 2 acre, but we can point to this and say, no, we don't want to plat that. You want to put a bunch of 1/4 acre lots in the middle of our 5 acre area, find a different area or consider different lots. Even though we can't impose zoning there, this is going to determine how we treat the developers with our subdivision ordinance.
So, on this map, what is the functional, not how you got there, but what's the functional difference between the areas that are green or outside the blue and the blank areas? Because the blank areas are portions that do not come into town at all. Whereas outside the blue area, we don't have any jurisdiction to do anything to that. So what's the functional difference between the colored and the colored areas?
We do have jurisdiction to subdivision ordinance.
The
We do
plating.
have that.
We have
And
plating.
right now, Kaufman County, Hunt County, they're being very polite and asking us, because if somebody within our town limits goes to one of the counties to plat their land, then Kaufman recently has been polite and asked us if we were ready to take that on. We don't have it in place yet, so Kaufman County gets to do it. Somebody will do it.
Right. And somebody does it in the ETJ, it's either going to be the county or it's going to be the town.
Brian, can I clarify what you're asking, just so I'm on the same page? You're saying the island's in the middle, and anything outside of the colored area, which remains in the cloud of the ETJ, is not colored, right?
Right.
And I guess what I'm hearing you say is, why is anything past the blue line colored, basically? Because
It's
ETJ.
essentially, yeah, and I try to stay off of Nextdoor as much as possible these days, but I actually did get on it today and saw some questions, so I'm coming at it from that perspective.
Yeah, because it's a valid question. Really, anything behind the 311-foot line or town limit line, yeah, I mean, we may have the ability to do the subdivision ordinances, but in my mind, those would fall in the same rules because they're inside the cloud of the ETJ, even though they're not colored. Why
So-
would they not?
I think they do.
And the reason they're colored now for future land use, we're hoping that that will become part of the town and it'll be agrarian.
So the goals and purposes here, and I think this is good, these goals and purposes are an essential element of this plan. The formulation of goals and purposes reflects sound planning principles and most importantly express the values of the community. The town of Poetry is viewed by its residents to be a friendly and safe place to live. Poetry treasures the absence of high-density development, traffic, congestion, and other related problems of larger cities. This comprehensive plan seeks to protect this quality of life as it represents the foundation upon which land use decisions will be based. Goals supported by the community provide a sound basis for planning and subsequent action. Further, as planning is a continuous process, periodic review of the priorities will provide for later revisions of purposes and land development recommendations. So I think it's important to see where they're coming from. So they have a goal here, quality of life, to maintain and promote the current rural quality of life in Poetry. And the purpose is to retain agrarian-based property patterns throughout the town. The environment, their goal is to promote the preservation, creation, and management of open space and natural features of the environment in order to safeguard safety, health, and welfare. The purpose is to avoid destruction of trees, animal species, and landscapes, to protect environmentally sensitive areas such as floodplains, creeks, and watersheds, to develop land use regulations that provide for open space preservation. Under agrarian, they have a goal, identify and safeguard important agricultural systems and their importance to the landscape and diversity to a rural community. The purpose, strengthen conservation and sustainability of our natural resources to encourage land use that promotes the sustainment, improvement, and historical pursuits of agrarian land. Under housing, the goal to provide an environment in which every resident within the town's planning area has an opportunity for adequate, decent, and safe housing. Purpose to maintain the existing quality of residential neighborhoods through enforcement of land use and building codes to avoid congestion on the existing streets. Under business, the goal to provide small-scale office and retail establishments that provide employment opportunities and provide products and services deemed desirable by the community. The purpose to designate specific and limited areas on the future land use map for small-scale office and retail establishments that are well-planned, aesthetically pleasing, and integrate well with surrounding residential areas. New buildings and their siting on the property should be of such scale and design so as to improve the quality and character and livability of surrounding areas. And I'm saying this for those who, we have quite a few people who listen online and they may not have a packet, and I think that's really good to see where they're coming from. So back to this sheet. So I guess I would prefer that it's, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I prefer it would say business/nonprofit, but, you know, I understand what you're trying to make it simple, and I do appreciate the simplicity of it, and that is helpful. I understand here that you do allow manufactured housing of all types on agrarian, small family estate, single family, or excuse me, that is called single family estate, and business. So in all 4 areas, you're allowing manufactured housing. I know that was a concern for some. It looks like library, for instance, is allowed on all, with a special designation, meaning they'd have to approach the council. Was there any other concerns? It looks like nursing facility is allowed as a business.
So again, on the semifinal here on the matrix, I think that's probably better discussed at another time now that I understand how they all fit together. I appreciate you guys going over that with me.
See, I have a question, and by the way, I have to second, this is really excellent, and I appreciate what you're doing. And I think it would, I'm not a lawyer, but I think it would get us over some legal hurdles if we were ever challenged. And that raises the one thing that, under where it says manufactured housing HUD code, I've been out here 20 years. Prior to that, I was in Sunnyvale, and in the 90s, in Sunnyvale, the plan got challenged because we didn't show any Section 8 housing, and it was a legal dispute, and they won. Sunnyvale lost, and the idea was you have to, what we were told was you have to have an allocation for Section 8 housing. I don't think I see it in here, and I'm not encouraging it, and I'm just, as a question or alert, is that something that you've considered?
From what?
That's going to be discussions for city councils down the road.
Yeah,
We
we're
don't
not there
have
yet.
the infrastructure, we don't have the utilities, any of that thing for that type of housing. But that's an issue, just like Sunnyvale. Sunnyvale didn't have that discussion year one. They had it year 10 or whatever. But, you know, at some point, you're right. Poetry may or may not have that discussion.
Well, I just described, at that time, Sunnyvale had roughly 2,000 people and 5,000 open acres. I mean, it was a lot of agrarian land. And for whatever reason, there was a litigation against the town.
And that's exactly why we have to have a comprehensive plan, because what will happen is groups will come out and just sue you.
Look, absolutely, I agree. And we don't want that any more than anybody else.
Right, and so that's why we're trying to cover as many of those bases
Well,
as we can. But in 5 years, yeah, we'll probably have to have
Well,
Section 8 discussion.
when talking with legal counsel, both Patricia and another attorney on that, if you have areas of your town that are for lower socioeconomic class, then you can sometimes get away with that, for lack of a better term. So we do have a broad, diverse socioeconomic classes in poetry. So we have those who have a very small lots with a manufactured home, and then we also have multi-million-dollar properties. So we allow for that, like there are smaller lots. So that's the main thing, is what she was saying, was that we allow for that. And so you're less likely to have a lawsuit if you're allowing for that. You can't just be a snob-filled community and just only allow, a certain level of housing. So,
So would that be more of a comprehensive plan, plating, or zoning item?
That would mean Section 8, that would be more zoning.
That would be more zoning? Okay.
Mayor, I would like to go on record at this moment saying that I'm a little bit confused, and maybe I slept through a couple of our meetings, but I thought our purpose this evening was to go over the comprehensive plan, and the matrix is not part of the comprehensive plan. It is a vital part of any zoning ordinance, which we may get to, and we'll certainly need a lot of detailed discussion at that time. But the comprehensive plan is currently a 3-page document plus the future land use map. And we were hoping to get feedback on that to give us a little bit of direction to finish the zoning ordinance or proposed zoning ordinance and fill out the matrix and some of the other things, and we can drill down into the details of the matrix. But I didn't realize that the matrix was going to be part of the package tonight. And my understanding as a committee member was that the comprehensive plan was going to have to be approved first. And that's a 3-page document.
So that's why I was trying to focus on reading that. And so, yes, there were only like 5 packets, I think, made, but we are required to go ahead and provide that. However, what I was reading and what you have read is, I think it's really good. I'm really pleased at the detail and the thoughtfulness that you put into this. Is there any council comment on any of this 3-page document?
Well, my comment's more on the future land use map. Are we certain that all of the identifiable businesses have been marked, and that would include the churches? I'm thinking that little finger blob down there is the school, the yellow one, over by my house? Yeah. Does that include the church? Okay. And so we've got a couple more churches up the road, so those are all.
Churches are marked.
Okay.
We're sitting here, and then you got Butcher Baptist right here.
Okay.
Now, if someone has a cottage industry, it's not on here, right?
Yeah,
So
just
cottage
the
industry is
churches in particular were being called out on next door again. I'm trying to hit some of the items that I know that there's questions about. So we have the churches marked.
Mm-hmm.
We have the campground cemetery.
Dry Creek, okay.
So
And it looks a little
also
less
to-
yellow because the blue is over it, so it looks a little less bright.
To give an idea of why these are also all lumped together and why certain known businesses, for example, my business isn't on here, is because my business is very small. It's under 5,000 square feet, and more importantly, it doesn't have any traffic going to it. The retail and the churches and the schools all do have traffic going in and out all the time, and that's something that the town needs to manage and consider, and needs to limit people just showing up at random places. We know how much trouble the, what do you call that? Place where people get married, you know. the
Wedding
place.
venue.
The Springs.
Yeah, the Springs, sorry, mine's not 100% with me. The Springs, we know how much trouble that's caused because people are coming in and out of there who don't live here. And we don't want that showing up everywhere, or at least I don't. So that's why those are kind of marked different, and that's the main consideration is traffic.
See, I do have a couple of comments on the wording and on the plan, and I agree, it's an excellent plan, and I think it serves a lot. And that is under item 1 of the guidelines where it says small scale. I think it needs to say businesses, comma, churches, and then the rest, because there are businesses that are not neither office facilities or retail. And in that same regard, under businesses on page 3, where it says small-scale office and retail established, I think office and retail should just say business. And then on purposes, again, office and retail, just say business, because we don't know, not everything is retail. But other than that, I don't have any problem with it at all. I think it's excellent. And I do think it's got I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's got a good legal basis to stand on. I'd be interested in knowing what a lawyer said.
So this 3-page document in your research, is that all it needs? And then the map?
That is correct.
That's all it needs?
Yes.
For the comprehensive plan? Okay.
This is pretty much all stolen from other towns anyways, slightly reworded, so it is what other people use, and it's what somebody's lawyers have
And
gone through
and what
this.
other cities did you pull from?
Gosh, Caddo Mills.
We got some of it from Caddo Mills, some of it from Fairview, and
Lucas.
A little bit
Lucas.
from Combine.
Okay. And those,
also, some of the language was taken from the local government code as purposes for local government.
okay. Okay.
So Catherine or Mike, can you tell us kind of in the sequence of things, we develop this plan, we bless it, and then what's sort of the next 2 or 3 steps that would occur after that?
Zoning map.
Well, what would happen next month, once we get approval or go-ahead on the comprehensive plan, is that we will get back into the details of the proposed zoning ordinance and finalize that and get that to a point where it can be presented to the council for discussion and cleaned up for a public hearing.
So that would be the creation of a zoning ordinance
Yes.
that would put more detail on this, that would talk about different levels of industry and,
And that's what the matrix was intended to be. That was a subset of the proposed zoning ordinance that we wanted to give you an advanced look at, so you can kind of see what we're thinking about, what we're working on, get any feedback on that. But that's part of the detail that would be with definitions of the various zones. There'll be an appendix for setbacks. There'll be sections on permitted uses. It'll be a fairly extensive document, but it will be a subset or driven by the comprehensive plan.
And
so
then-
on the sort of threat compendium, the comprehensive plan is the lowest threat. That's not getting into anybody's business yet, but when we get into an ordinance is when we start imposing things, we start putting up boundaries.
That's when you get into the general detail, because my understanding of the intent of the comprehensive plan is that's where you expect the community to go in the future, the direction you would like to see the community go, with the overall overarching guidelines for the community, and that is supposed to be the basis for your ordinances and basis for decisions in case there are questions about the legality of some of the things that we do.
Now, is there any thought, and I know you guys don't have enforcement authority or anything, but, you know, as someone said, we've got kind of a mix of people and income levels and other things out here and structures and whatever. Is there any thought that, you know, we're going to go towards a P&Z ordinance that's going to force some people out? Or force some people into some other, like we go down to the Springs and say, you know, we've decided that there's no marriages going on anymore, we want to change that, or?
I'm sorry, Mike, we can't do that. And I just want to make it really clear that what you have right now, you get to keep. Nothing, that's just the way it is.
Oh, your grandfather claused in.
You are grandfathered in. We're not trying to change anything. We're trying to prevent problems in the future.
Right, well, and I say that.
And I'm sorry, Mike, that we can't close down the Springs. I'm sorry.
No. I say that because it's not necessarily my concern, but I know it is the concern of citizens, especially those who may not have ridden along on this journey or understand even what P&Z. They're just thinking, okay, you're going to kick me and my mobile home out of here. You're going to kick me and my cow out of here. You're going to kick me and my oak tree out of here, you know, whatever it is. And I think it's important that the spirit of what we're doing here is kind of in Terry speak, to take a picture of what poetry looks like today and sort of honor that as far and as long as we can into the future.
Well, I know that in my neighborhood, we have a lot of gravel truck traffic that we would really like to see change. We also have a lot of Springs traffic that gets detoured down my road. But the concerns of my neighbors are things like, are you going to tell me I have to tow off my dead car? Can I still have my gun range? These are the questions that are coming to me. And I'm going to say, no, we don't care about your car. And yes, you get to have your gun range. Though that's a topic for another discussion. Because maybe we need to check some gun ranges. Because I don't know, there was some.
And I did hear a citizen, or read a citizen concern that they would have to shut down their current business, and that is not the case at all. Whatever you currently have, and then you can continue that. That's not a threat at all.
Also, any project you've only partially done, if you plan on building a business and you've just laid groundwork for it, you've invested a dime, the rest of the construction can't be stopped. So if Mr. Mike decides to build a skyscraper on his property and just
Thinking about it.
levels it off just a little bit, then he can go ahead and build that and keep it forever, and there's nothing we can ever do about it. This would just be for newcomers to poetry, making sure somebody doesn't come in here, build a bleach factory, or decide to buy a sand pit and make it a landfill, you know.
I've heard in the past a paraphrase of, if you like it, you can keep it. What is the assurance that that is actually, are there statutory assurances that we can't change things, or what do we say? You're saying it won't change, So what statutory assurance is there?
There's a mechanism that a lot of cities use. It's called a CO, Certificate of Occupancy. Okay? So that's everyone's protection. So right now, everybody's going to come into the city with what they are. We're really going to have very, very few what we would call legal non-conforming uses. Okay? That would say you have a mobile home on a piece of land that is zoned retail. That would be and it's existing, so that would be a legal non-conforming use. What you do for the protect the property owners is, okay, we'll issue you a CO. Now you have to meet certain minimal requirements in order for the city to issue you a certificate of occupancy. So you have a mobile home on a 1 acre commercial property, you get a CO from the city. God forbid a fire comes along and burns the mobile home. Okay? Well, now you're kicking me out of poetry. No, because you had that CO, you can replace that mobile home on that 1 acre commercial lot.
Okay.
So that's
I understand the theory, but I'm wanting to get to the specific. Is there a state law that
Hey, Brian,
says?
it's a general rule of law. You cannot pass an ex post facto law, which basically means you cannot make something illegal. So if you're conducting an activity today, you can't pass a law in the future and then stop that activity that was previously established.
Well,
The CO provides you proof that activity was happening before the passage of any zoning ordinance.
But
So
I think
I know that ex post facto is a legal doctrine, but is there a specific state statute? I'm wanting to guarantee people that they don't have anything to worry about.
I've not seen it, but it's a general rule of law that.
Okay.
It's state law, and I believe it's federal as well.
Well, if
but it's
we're
at
writing
least
it
state.
in, we could just as easily write it out. So I'm trying to make sure that there's something that says we absolutely have to allow people to continue using their property. And since we're operating in a relatively low-trust environment in this town, I would like to make sure that that is something that people can put a thumbtack in and say, this is proof.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
it's-
like he said, that would be in the form of an ordinance.
But that's also state law.
Yeah,
The
that's-
grandfather clause, state law, I can't, give you the subchapter. I don't have that memorized, but yeah, it's state law. There's nothing we can do to change that.
So, but,
So, go ahead, Rob.
Order.
so back to, Mike had asked earlier, and he answered, you asked what were the next 2 or 3 steps. So he explained, once we get this approved, we do for the zoning map or we start that process, the ordinances. After that, something that's big, and I know that y'all want to keep telling me that we're not a big city, and I understand we're not a big city, but to protect little cities, no matter what, you still need to have a charter for your town. It is the constitution for your town. It states that in the local government code book that you need a charter. We
Well,
would
as-
also need a board of adjustments, and that's not necessarily made by council because, not to be ugly, but in 2 or 4 years, y'all may not be sitting there. So the council is not normally the board of adjustments. That is your citizens that are appointed to be on the board of adjustments. And we need to have a building code, because if we had developers come in, we have to have a standard as to what we want our public health safety to be for these homes, businesses that people live in. And like I said, I know that y'all want to tell me we're not that far, but when you don't think ahead about little things like that, that's how people come in and can do what they want to do, because then they go by what the county's going by, not what our town wants. So it's a big thing for us to get a charter, board of
Well-
adjustments, and a building code.
So, do you have the code on that? Because I've been told by legal that until we reach 5,000 and we are not a type A, we cannot have a charter. We're under state
That's not true.
auspices.
General law does not require
It-
a charter.
A general law
But
does
it
not,
also helps protect you if you do have
we're
one
under
because it's the
state
Constitution.
guidelines automatically. Like, we aren't, I was told we aren't allowed to necessarily, because we have to follow, as a general law type A, we have to follow the state mandate laws.
I've
Once
just
we
consulted
reach
other
5,000 in
cities.
population, then we have the ability potentially to make our own charter and,
So maybe we can go ahead and run it by council one more time, just to make sure, because we've done that before and gotten different answers.
Yeah.
So,
it's
I
not a
don't-
bad idea.
Yeah, I don't know that it necessarily says we're taking control of all aspects of government, because as a general law city, they give us the government that we're
Right.
responsible for
Correct.
enforcing.
Right.
As a home rule city,
Correct.
we get to make up our own stuff,
Correct.
but we're not big enough.
We're not big enough to be home rule yet.
Right, but can a general law city have a charter or constitution?
I
I don't
mean,
know.
honestly, I was in code enforcement class today with TEEX. Asked that same question. We talked about it. They said all towns, it can have a charter. It makes their constitution, it makes that little town stronger because you have what your city stands for, what your constitution is. And by you not having a building code also, that makes it where developers can take advantage of us.
We can
And-
we can revisit that. I do know Kaufman County said if we don't have any ordinances affecting our citizens yet, so that everything defaults to the county for building codes. So we
That-
need at least one. They said, just even do one little one, and then you will have the jurisdiction.
Correct.
For, and that was Kaufman County, and Hunt County I haven't heard from, but on that note, but we don't have any. We have.
So like I said, after we get the zoning part going, we would really need to consider getting a Board of Adjustments going and figuring out who all would be appointed on that. Because, I mean, like I said, I know none of us want anybody to come in here and build a bunch of stuff. And if we have nothing in line, I mean, we can only hold so much, but when you don't have a building code, you don't have a Board of Adjustments going on,
Right.
it can cause a lot of big problems.
Yep. I think if we fail to plan, we plan to fail.
You know, to your point, Brian, and tragically, I don't have a good comforting answer, but I know on the case of ag, which is what a lot of our town is, that can be taken away by a city, and Terrell is doing that. And I was disappointed when I went and read the Texas state law, but it has to do with if that facility is deemed a nuisance because of insects or because of smell or because of noise or something. So in the future, not this council, I don't think, someone could come in and say that my cows are annoying them, and a council could push to take away my ag exemption and force my animals off, in which case I'd no longer be a grant. But anyway, my point is, I don't think, having lived on this planet 62 years and witnessed a lot of good and bad government, there is anything that would guarantee for any length of time any peace of mind. I mean, as soon as we're voted out at some stage and somebody else comes in, they could change things up completely. You know, I think everybody hears, and on the P&Z committee's hearts and minds are in the right place, but, you know, I don't think anything is 100%.
well, nothing's 100%. I would like to instill as much trust as
Yeah,
possible
agreed.
into the process, if not into the people. So that's why I'm talking, you know, let's find a way that we can give as much encouragement that we're trying to do the right thing to the people as possible.
You know, I think it's going to be incumbent on us as citizens, not just council members, but as citizens, to stay on top of who it is that we're electing to run our town, because really, we need to know the hearts and the minds of those people, because they could come in, someone that we didn't know, but somehow won our favor through some clever posters and free chicken dinners or something, and take our town completely away from us, right? So I think, to me, that's the beauty and the blessing of our community, is we know each other. We know the good and the bad. We've been down the road a while together, and so we kind of know what we're generally inclined to do. And I think that's going to be the greatest, in my opinion, determining factor as to where we go, because I don't think state, federal, or any other law is going to protect us 100%.
Right.
If somebody wants to come in, it's sort of like locks keep honest people honest. Well, rules and ordinances keep, you know, law-abiding citizens honest, but they don't protect from somebody with a really good legal firm and strong ambitions from, you know, making it happen.
And major lobbyists in Austin, developers.
Yeah.
I know I've asked some questions that may have been just a little uncomfortable, but I want to go back and say that for me, this is like a very well-prepared meal that gives a little bit of heartburn afterwards. You guys have done a fantastic job. You really have, and I appreciate the hard work, the diligence you put into it. I'm just a little unsettled by the rule structures that are coming in. I understand the need for them, but yeah, just a little smidge of heartburn over a very well-prepared meal.
You know, Brian, I feel your pain, I do, but I've spent most of my adult life living in the country in different counties, not in cities. And, you know, we sold our 200 acres on the Brazos River because the county said, sure, build your power plant up there on the ridge and run your lights 24 hours a day. Ruined our sunset, ruined the whole atmosphere of the valley there. And, you know, I think that the idea of rules is pretty hard for most country people to swallow. It really is. And the truth is, we have to have those to protect what we have. And if we could have come up with another way, we would have. We've kicked this hard. We really have. And I too, you know, we closed on the house 3 days after the town became incorporated. So we started from the beginning, and I'm hoping that as a community, we can come together, find our common ground, and slowly but surely build back trust that should have been there from day one, because it's the external threats that we should be focused on, not the internal.
And see, that's
Well
the
said.
reason I think we can get this done, is because people like you and me are critical of this. I mean, I got my business out of Terrell because of their ridiculous rules and regulations. They followed it more than they actually had written. And that just caused so much trouble. So for people like you and me, I hope we can tear this apart and be critical and look at what our town wants. We want as many rules as possible that isn't going to start infringing on our vision for the town. We want people to be able to do as much as possible without big development and big business being able to take advantage of us and swallow us up. And I know everybody in this audience feels the same way. And that's what I'm counting on, because like you said, if we get bad people up here on the council, we get bad input from the town, if we had a bad committee, we would be toast. But I know everybody here has the same vision. We're all going to be looking to make sure that we're allowed to do as much as possible with just preventing the things that are going to tear a lifestyle up, and that's why I think this might actually have a shot at succeeding.
Well, I commend you all. You've done such they've been meeting, for those of you who haven't heard this before, they meet nearly every Wednesday night. How long has it been now?
A long time.
It's over 9 months, right? It's
over a year.
Over a year? Okay, so they've been working diligently on this, and I just applaud you. And thank you so much. And I think it's evident that you're trying to keep poetry. And what my takeaway was, I see that you want to be strict on some of the businesses, but be easy on the residents. And that's kind of what my
Yes.
takeaway is. You want to allow residents as much freedom as possible, but let's not have a petroleum plant right next door. Okay,
Or a rendering plant, or my favorite, the SOB, the sexually oriented business.
Oh, right. So,
Okay? I mean, I think we can all agree, we don't really want that in our town. No, that's my favorite thing that I've learned in this process, is the SOB.
So unless we have this comprehensive plan, we don't have a leg to stand on. So it is vital, and I've heard that from over and over and over, and it is the very first step, and that is a vital step. So thank you so much. And any other comments from council?
Thanks again for your hard work. It's very good.
Thank you for listening. I think listening is the key to moving forward and regaining trust. And Brian, I just want to say that I appreciate you filtering all that garbage that I know is going on out there, that I didn't have to look at it because I don't want to. And bringing those questions, because I think the questions need to be heard. I think that the issues need to be addressed. And I don't have the patience for social media.
So, thank you for doing that.
Okay, so what started out to be just the workshop, we have other issues to deal with tonight, so we're going to adjourn the workshop and a 5-minute recess.